Legislation called the Judiciary Act of 2021 was introduced last week that would immediately expand the Supreme Court to 13 justices. If this is serious in its intent, it is foolish. There is no need to expand the court in order to meet the demands of its workload. After the peaking in 2006 when President George W. Bush was in office, the number of cases in the docket have now plummeted. The late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, appointed by President Clinton and a liberal icon, in 2019 told NPR that there is no need to expand the court, saying, "9 seems to be a good number." With that established, this is a transparent ploy for power that would undermine trust in the fair application of law and delegitimize the highest court of the land. If this is really a serious policy piece of legislation, we certainly wouldn't change the number of Supreme Court justices immediately. If it wasn't just politics, we certainly wouldn't change the justices before another election. In fact, Senator Joe Biden on this Senate floor called FDR's attempt to pack the court, quote, a power grab. And as presidential candidate this last year, he refused to endorse expanding the number of justices. Earlier this month, Justice Stephen Breyer, appointed by President Clinton, said the court's authority depends on, quote, a trust that the court is guided by legal principles, not politics. He continued by saying, structural alteration motivated by the perception of political influence can only feed the latter perception, further eroding that trust. If the public sees judges, any judge, but if they see Supreme Court justices as politicians in robes, its confidence, the public's confidence in the courts and in the rule of law itself can only be diminished, diminishing the court's power, including its power to act as a check on other branches of government. Last August, Gallup found that 58% of Americans approve of the job the Supreme Court is doing. In fact, the Supreme Court's approval ratings actually increased in the last several years. Polling from February of this year finds that 35% of Americans approve the job that we in Congress are doing, and that's up from 15% not many days ago. I raise this data to demonstrate that the Supreme Court is an institution which a majority of Americans continue to place their trust in. That's a significant circumstance in today's polarized world, but a majority of Americans still believe they can trust the Supreme Court. If we, Congress, inject ourselves into the size of the court's composition, Justice Breyer is exactly right that the trust in the American people have that the rulings will be delivered on a fair reading of the law will be further undermined. On the Republican side of the aisle, we've seen our share of defeats in recent years, and not once when the Republican Party controlled Congress and had the White House were their efforts to expand the Supreme Court. Can you imagine how the left or the media would react if President Trump attempted to expand the court to 13 justices and add 4 Republican-nominated justices during his tenure? We have not attempted to expand the court because the Supreme Court should not serve as another legislative body. That is our job, a job we need to do much better than we do today, so that more than 1/3 of the American people can place their confidence in us as we pass laws. We've had the same number of Supreme Court justices for more than 150 years. Perhaps the Judiciary Act of 2021 is less an effort to expand the Supreme Court than an effort to intimidate sitting justices to deliver rulings favorable to the ideology of my colleagues proposing the legislation. From guns to abortion, to religious liberties, to other hot-button issues, my colleagues are threatening the justices either to deliver favorable rulings or not take up divisive cases at all. If this is what my colleagues seek to accomplish, I'm confident that the independence and integrity of our justices will prevail. Indeed, it must prevail to preserve the American people's confidence in the institution of the courts, in the judicial system, in the Supreme Court. I'm disappointed because rather than working with each other across the aisle, across this aisle right here, to pass legislation. Democrats interested in pursuing a larger Supreme Court are more interested in that, more interested in eliminating the filibuster than to pass their agenda and stack the court to prevent their legislation from being struck down as unconstitutional. Process matters around here. We have to get to the point in which we utilize the process to get a fair and just result, where all people's voices are heard, where every member of the Senate has the opportunity to express their view and an opportunity for that to be voted on. But we don't skew the process to get a desired outcome. We all need to do our jobs to convince our colleagues that we are right in our position, that our legislation is meritorious. We don't and we shouldn't change the process to get our way. The checks and balances of our Constitution work. They've worked for a long time. They are important to this country. When we talk about how divisive things are on the Senate floor and in this country today, the solution to that is not changing the rules in the middle of the game. The rules, it is to abide by the rules that protect our freedoms and liberties. I implore my colleagues to have the same faith in these constitutional guardrails as I do, to have the same faith in the independence and fairness of the Supreme Court that a majority of Americans have, and to believe that we can work together. You and I can work together on behalf of the Americans we serve, the Americans we represent, without resorting to acts that will damage us all today and for generations to come. Mr. President, I thank you for your attention, and I yield the floor.